Wow. Thank you so much, everybody who stuck around. Holy shit. But, dude, is this going to be worth it? So let's pretend. Sure. Let's pretend we're going live right now. Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of From the Hip. With my guest this week, hybrid Sean Carr. How you doing, Carr?
Oh, my man, I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hanging and banging, my friend. Living the dream, some would say.
There you go. Perfect.
All right. So I mentioned this on a post when I was putting you over. Something I've been known to do once or twice. And I was saying
once or twice.
Only once or twice. If I was married to Kevin Graham all those years, you had to be my mistress. Because there is nobody in his business I have been in the ring with more or shared a locker room with more, aside from Kevin Graham, than you. Would that be a fair statement?
That is fair, yeah. That would be extremely fair.
Now, I tried to figure this out beforehand because I was talking to Patrick last week about the same thing. Now, I don't think we really crossed paths until your first 2CW show, right?
We actually crossed paths at a GSW show. And that was literally
you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear?
But
hell's coming with me!
We officially met in 2CW. So, we were on one same show together, and then after that, we, yeah.
Okay, because I definitely knew who you were.
Yeah, same.
And that was during the time when there was a very definite line between 2CW and the other Binghamton companies, which you were a part of.
Yes, 100%.
100%. But I did always hear, when talking about the other Binghamton plays, it was always this, and this. But there's that Sean Carr kid,
Yeah.
So you had that going for you.
That was, and I think that's what helped me get to the promised land, to be honest with you, because I enjoyed my time with the other company when it was ECPW, and before Excite, it was called 3DW.
Because 3 is better than 2.
I think it was because 3 is definitely better than 2. For dedication, desire, determination. I might get those words mixed up, but it was that wrestling. So and then I always wanted to be a part of 2CW though. I always wanted. That was the goal. And then in a very 2CW fashion, when I return, I got booked for 2CW.
No. What happened?
So I had no idea. Nobody reached out to me. Josh never said, "Hey man, I'm Josh. Are you available on this date?" Trades never did. It was literally on Twitter, and they didn't even get my Twitter handle at the time. But Sean Carr on August 28th or whatever it was, and that was literally how I found out I was booked for 2CW.
That is the most 2CW booking I've ever seen. I remember. Who did you wrestle that night? The first night, your first match?
First one out was Cheech.
Cheech, okay. So fun fact, I was actually in Gorilla back when it was in that hallway by the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was standing next to Josh, and I was watching a match on the monitor. And you're doing your Sean Carr thing, and then you go up, you hit your moonsault, Cheech kicks out, and Josh, I'm standing right next to him, so he smacks me really hard in the stomach. He points at the monitor, he goes, "Man, this guy's pulling out all his shit. He really wants to get booked again."
Yep. And to be honest, like that is what all like everybody's advice was. Like, hey man, don't hold anything back because it might be your one shot. So I was like, well, we're gonna throw everything I got out there. So, and honestly, like I gotta credit Cheech with 90% of that because he's so good at making other people look way better than they were, and I was greener than grass. Like he was like, hey, moves, and like I drop kick and I do arm drags and arm wringers, and he goes, no, like false finishes. And at the time, like I was only working for like maybe 2 years, and not really in good places. So like, you know, a big spot is a drop kick in a lot of the places that I was working for. So when he was like, no, like what do you do, like big like moonsaults? I was like, oh yeah, I do those. So he was able to really help me get through that match and make me look really good. So kudos to him.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I always loved my matches working Cheech.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's one of those guys. I'm sure that went into the booking. Like they wanted to make sure like you weren't with a guy that was going to be too difficult to work with, but too easy, you know, a good mesh, and would get the best out of you as possible. And doing all that and getting the booking, like you should really, like, I mean, hang your head on that, because like I was also sitting next to Josh when Vin Gerard had his match and he never came back. Michael Elgin, his first time, he never came back for years, you know. So there was a lot of big names that came in there, didn't hold up, and then we never saw again, if at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was there when that happened to Jordan Lennox. And because I know like a lot of the Rochester guys were pushing for him because he had a killer match with Brody at Pier 6. And just for whatever reason, I forgot who he was working with, but I believe it was in Oswego, I think.
It was definitely Oswego, because I didn't know Jordan at the time, and I saw him, and I go, "Who's this Ron Van Dam motherfucker over here?" And that's when I found out who it was. But I can't remember who it was.
Because like I remember, like I mean, we've all had, you know, like stinkers where we go out there and they're really not what they should have been. And I remember all the Rochester guys were like pulling for Jordan, and I'll never forget, like Josh was looking at the monitor and he was so mad. He looked at Cheech, he goes, "Is this on you or Brody?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go." And Cheech was like, "Oh, it's Brody. It's all Brody, not me."
It's all Brody. It's all Brody.
Brody. So,
went against Frank the Tank. That's right, Frank the Tank. 9/17/11. Patrick knows.
That's like an encyclopedia. He can tell you anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna start reaching out to him before podcast episodes and just be like, Patrick, when was this match? When did we do this? What happened? So you and I had, to be fair, on my cheat sheet. You know, like you need it. I mean, the fact that you have one is still trying to remember. Do you remember like when our whole tag thing started? Because it feels like it was Pentagram and CK since the beginning. And
I remember it took a while to get Cage in 2CW. I remember like I debuted. Josh was not sold on him at the time. It was like 6 months into my run with 2CW where Josh, okay, let's give him a shot. And he really tested him. And he had him do the good old J.O.B. Binghamton to Steve McKenzie.
Yes.
And he was waiting for there to be like a reaction. Because at that time, Cage had he's always had kind of like that rap, like, I ain't doing jobs. But he really
buddy.
I like brother. But he was best behavior, and he they went out there and they had a good, a really, it was a good match. And I think Josh, like him and Josh for a minute there kind of clicked for a second. That would change later as years go on, but
we'll get there.
Oh, we'll get there, brother. It was weird because it was like, I feel like you and Graham were like already established as a tag team, and it was weird. Like I remember we had like one stint where we brought Rob Cook in, and it was like first class with you, Springate, and Kevin versus me, Rob, and Chuck. And then Rob kind of like, we had like that big street fight in Watertown, where then like the next night in Rome, like Rob wrestled Springate for his career at 2CW and he lost or something. But yeah, man, it's going back. Like we didn't really start having like those banger like matches until probably like a year into like me being a part of 2CW, I would say.
Yeah, I remember because Graham and I, we came in and we were doing the student thing. So it was like me versus Graham and Studley. And it wasn't until towards the end of our first year that we started doing first class with us in Springate. And it must have been sometime not too long after that, because I remember it was you, me, Springate, Kevin versus you, Cage, and Cook at Elmira, at the first Elmira show, and like that youth center YMCA thing. Because I remember like Springate wanted to come out with like the 2CW flag, and like it got a good pop and everything, but like me and Graham were like, we didn't want to turn this into like a 2CW versus like 3DW thing. We felt like coming out with the flag kind of like made it seem that way, because like technically everyone's 2CW, so why would we coming out with it? But Springate was very adamant.
And I think like at that point too, like Cage and I was only with that 3DW for like the first 2 or 3 shows or 4 shows, I think. And then after that, like I just, I separate myself from it. So it was like a while, but I remember that he came out with the 2CW flag, and I was like, I'm 2CW too.
Yeah, it was just really weird. I remember me and Graham just being back there. It's like, why are we coming out with this flag? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, they're gonna think it's like us versus them. Plus, it was our first time in Elmira, and like Rob, his hometown, he works there. Like, it's not a really good look. And but we did it, and is what it was. And I remember Graham and I were tag champs at the time, so it had to be during our first run. So that was probably like the beginning of all that. So then night 2, if that was in Rome, was that when we dropped the titles of the Briscoes? Patrick, you have to verify that. I do remember the street fight with Springate, and I remember the schmaz at the end. And I just took off. A week of vacation at work, and that was my first day of vacation. And we did that brawl, and we're going, and you and I are brawling. We go down. I'm on top of you. We roll over. You start like throwing hams, and you bring down your elbow, and it drills me right in the temple. And I just was like, ow. I was like, what? I remember throwing you off, clubbing you, going to the back, going to the curtain. I went up against the wall, and I slid down onto my ass. Josh turns around. Fuck's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm okay. Just rang my bell. It's fine.
Okay.
And for the rest of the vacation, I had such a headache that I couldn't chew solid foods because the muscles hurt. So I was eating soup and popsicles for my entire vacation, which I guess might be a good thing. I didn't have to work, but yeah, it wasn't the vacation I was planning on.
I'm sorry, man. I forgot about that. I was
Hey, shit happens. It ain't ballet, kid.
It ain't ballet.
What would Patrick say? Your first tag match was a 4-way, 2012, the Steves and All Money. Your first regular tag was Utica, version 2, October 2012. Steves and All Money. Okay, that was October. Because I remember Cruz wanted us all to wear the pink tape.
Yes, you're correct.
That was last week. I remember that. So that was the beginning of our lovely relationship. So yeah, so Graham and I guess, were the established like homegrown guys. Like we're the first homegrown people since, I'm gonna say since Freddie. Jason X was homegrown, but he kind of like came in with 2CW started. So like he was homegrown, but he was growing with the company. 2CW was already established. Freddie came in, he did his thing, and then me and Graham were kind of like the next batch. So we came in, yeah, we're established because, you know, Graham was the referee prior. I was the graphic video guy. Everybody knew Big Pun doing the shirts and shit. So we were pretty established as like the locals. So like when you guys came in, aside from Binghamton, would you say like there was kind of like you guys were kind of automatically the heels, kind of seen as almost like the outside guys in the equation?
You know what's
Like
crazy?
at least in the
Is
beginning.
It, for me, it wasn't. Like I was pretty welcomed like from day one. I think I can't speak for Kate, but
I was gonna say maybe Cage.
definitely him, because I know that yeah, there was definitely like because I mean at the time I was so new to wrestling. I didn't have a name yet. I was just, you know, still just working, where he had been working for like 12 years to that point, so we already had an established name and a reputation. So I would say definitely for him, but not for me. Like from the first day I came in, everyone was so cool. Everyone was really, you know, just chill. And I kind of feel like I was like a homegrown type of guy too, because like I built my name on 2CW. And I didn't train with you guys up in the school or anything, but like I felt like I grew as a performer through 2CW.
Yeah, that is kind of almost a weird dynamic of being like not local but still homegrown. I mean,
Yeah.
Binghamton has always been like the home away from home for 2CW. It was always like, you know, we ran like Utica and stuff first, but like once I got into Binghamton, that became like the madhouse. That was like, you know, our New York City building and shit. So
Sure.
you know, you a sister location, sister, and all that. Like it makes sense, but like, yeah, you know, me, Graham, Freddie, Axe, we're the homegrown guys because we came from the school out there. We trained out there. Grew up there. But you guys came from, you know, hours away. But because like you didn't have the established reputation of a big indie guy prior, you still grew up in 2CW. So it was really, you know, the same damn thing. And everyone I know, when they mention 2CW guys now, you know, 2CW guys on a show, or what 2CW guys are on the show, it's me, it's Freddie, it's Isis, and it's you. Like you're hands down like a 2CW guy. So it is kind of a weird but almost beautiful thing, man.
Oh, it is crazy, because I remember I was wrestling. It definitely happens a lot at Immortal. Where like we'll get like the ECW guy. You remember like WWE when they bought ECW, Drainer would be on Raw, or Van Dam, and they chant ECW. I guess we're like, we go to some of these buildings that 2CW used to run, and they'll chant 2CW at us, and that's cool. You know, that means that to me, I mean, I'm just like, all right, cool. Like I was a small piece in the puzzle that was able to, you know, have people really remember. You have a lasting impression. So that's always cool. But yeah, no, it's definitely like anytime people say, oh yeah, you know, they met W, it's always you, me, Freddie, Graham, you know, even Skyros do a bit. They still kind of remember him as Guy Sunshine, but yeah, it's definitely like that core.
Agent said Sean Carr had 68 matches in 2CW. That's a good resume builder.
Wow.
How many of those 68 do you remember?
Probably 5. No.
Okay. How many of those 68 do you think involved me and or Graham?
Oh man, I would say at least 20, if not more.
I was thinking like 20, yeah.
Between singles and multi-mans and battle royals and tag match, I would probably say it's around 20, if not more.
Yeah, I would go out on a limb, and I would say I would be as bold as saying that. Agent, give me a second, I'll figure that out. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that Graham and CK were probably, if not fuck it. We were the backbone of tag team wrestling there for a long time. Whether we were the tag champions, rather than the title picture, you can always count on Graham. You can always count on CK, and either we were the champions, we were fighting each other for the championships, we were fighting each other for the opportunities or whatever. Like, we were in and around there, and so like when me and Graham were coming up, the tag teams were it was Up in Smoke, the Wolves, and then the Smash Brothers started coming in, and then me and Graham started coming up. So, we were working them, then like the Chris came in, and then it was you and me, me and Graham, and then you and Cage. So like we're always like there in the foundation, and it seems like we're always kind of like around the picture. But like when me and Graham won the titles the second time, that's when like probably the CK Pun and Graham like feud kind of like kicked up. And during this time, I want to say 2CW was as storyline or angle driven as it was prior. It kind of came more about the matches and moments and like long-term storytelling. But I feel like the Pun and Graham and CK thing was a long ongoing like saga that had connecting parts. So I felt like we were like a really ongoing like feud and story. I don't know if you ever saw, but one day I got bored and I just made like an ECW style CK Pun and Graham feud video set to Megadeth. And it was just like a year and a half of clips of our matches telling the story of like when we won the titles, you chasing the titles, us killing Mikey, you winning the titles, us getting the titles back, and it was leading up to I think the Gladiators Ball or whatever. But yeah, it was like this long, like 6-minute video of just highlights of our stuff.
Wow. You have to send that to me. I'd love to check it out because that was definitely like, that I feel like with at least the three of us, because Cage was, he was already on the scene for a while, but I feel like with the three of us, like that's where we learned how to tell stories in the ring. That's really where, we were taught the importance of patience and to really like feel a crowd out and like how to deliver. Because like, I mean, I tell people all the time whenever they ask about my time in 2CW, I was like, imagine you're looking across the locker room and you see Kevin Steen, you see Chris Hero, you see any major independent wrestler in that time, and you have to go on right before, or you have to open the show. You're in the mix of all of that, and like, that's a pretty important thing to do. And I feel like our matches always held up with everything else that was on the card, no matter what, whether we were, in hardcore matches, whether it was just regular tag matches. I remember it was the tag match we did at the Girls Grand Prix. And I remember Serena Deeb came up to all of us and she was like, wow, guys, like that was a match. Like that was really, really good. And, I always would take those like little bits of whenever a veteran like that would come up and like say, wow, that was, I always took that to heart. You know what I mean? Because like it just shows the hard work that we always put in. All of us really wanted to be in the next level, and we really wanted to hang in there with the best that Josh was bringing in, and hits what he always is. He brought in the best. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember before one of our matches, I was like talking to Graham about stuff because Graham and I were always like on the same page of like our wrestling style. Like we're very traditional where we come from. So like our style, we would be like, oh, let's do that Brainbuster spot. Let's do the thing that Arn did, or let's do the Heart Foundation thing. Like that's where we went to a lot of our stuff with and things like that. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I was like, man, we gotta do something tonight. I was like, I'm sick. Like we have these great matches, but then like the Young Bucks go out right after us. I was like, we need to start adding some more. We need to start figuring some stuff out. And that's when like stuff started kicking in, because I remember not too long after that, like Kevin, like he went from Kevin the Man Graham to Kevin the Man Graham, and he'd have that fucking snarl and like that walk, and he just got like almost Rick Rude type of dirty and shit,
Oh yeah,
he got like real aggressive.
When you guys would come out to the CKY song, like I loved your guys' entrance. I thought I thought it was a perfect mixture of both you guys. Like, it's funny, like how you said, I remember there was a time when like how you guys would even stand in the ring and like you'd be that big Punisher VanSlyke sitting there and he'd be on like the second rope and he'd jump over you and like, and just was the man. And like, yeah, dude, like, you know, it definitely, you guys definitely had, I feel like we were always different too. Like, like we could do the moves like that the Super Indies were doing, but like we also like would put our own twist on it. And I felt like that's why a lot of the audience and like the diehards really had a special connection with us.
Yeah, it got to the point where well, first off, I think there's a touch on with me and Graham. I just have to point this out that we built that whole thing around us being Jay and Silent Bob. Like Kevin was a firecracker with dirt on it, and I was the guy who just stood there and never spoke. We were Jay and Silent Bob. That's why the one move, the high and low, we called it the quick stop.
Okay.
We're Jay and Silent Bob. But yeah, like the thing about us, all our matches, like constantly, like almost every show is always going to be like some sort of pentagram and CK, and all the matches are great. But it really became that thing where it's like, okay, what are we doing tonight? Because we just wrestled each other 3 weeks ago. Like this worked, but we don't want to do the same thing. So what can we do to either build off of it or do it a different way? And really, like you were saying earlier, like the psychology and the building a match and putting the stuff together, you wrestle each other so much, you know what works, but you just can't do the same match every time or else the fans aren't going to keep buying it. And then the Young Bucks are just going to outshine you even more. So like it really became like, okay, well, let's do the Binghamton, but let's add, you know, Hamlin in there.
Yeah.
Well, we got to throw in a little bit of Allentown.
Dude, we still do that to this day. Like every time last time we had at work, I think you were like, all right, do you want to do like Utica from like that, you know?
Let's do that Oswego Double Down. It was really good. I like that one.
And then it was crazy too, because then there was a part in time, there was a point where we were like other companies were starting to book the match. Like I remember Pier 6 Wrestling match and yeah, so it was definitely but you're right, man. I mean, there was so many times we're like, man, we're wrestling each other all the time. We gotta keep one up in it. We gotta keep changing things, upping things, and you know, and we were able to do that. Like, and for like, you know, for the three of us, because at the time, like we were only like, you know, what, like 5 to 6 years in the business between all of us. Like, I mean, we're still learning and growing. And I always like tip my hat to like, you know, how we learned it was such an old school way, you know, where literally you're thrown out there and it's sink or swim. And I like to think like we always rose to the occasion. There was definitely hiccups along the way.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Well, I guess before we get there, well, first Fenton said 16 times total, either with Brute or Graham. 13 tag matches, one single with you versus Graham, one versus me, and one 4-way, including Graham with you. So you're in the ring 16 times with us out of that 68, which is still a lot.
That is a lot. That's a lot, yeah.
That singles match we had in Oswego, though, like I fucking love that match. To this day, it's still one of my favorite matches. And I remember when we were done, I walked to the back, and Keith Harris came up to me, he put his arm on my shoulder. He goes, "Dude, that's the match you send to people to get bookings." He was like, "You send that match everywhere." And I still remember we're in there, and it was towards the end, and I did this to be an asshole, but it was good. Because I was trying to put over like my boot, and I was like, Carr, what if you super kick me like 30 times, and then like, you know, I'll come off and I'll give you the big boot and we'll do the double down. And I remember you hit me like the first 5 super kicks, and then you fired up, you hit me with like the 8th one or however many you hit. I hit the ropes, I came back, hit you the fucking boot. We both went down, and I remember the crowd chanting, "This is awesome," and I was just like, fucking get up and take my head off. I'm like, let's do this shit. Like I was so amped up.
Yeah.
It was
you know, it's funny because like I always felt like you and me, like we were in and just I mean I'm not trying to compare us to these two wrestlers. So when I throw the names out, please just take it for how you think. But I always felt like you and I had the chemistry that like Shawn Michaels and Vader had. Or like a Shawn Michaels and like, you know, just that it was always that interesting
I get it. I was stiff.
Yeah. And I was a prick to deal with, though. I'm just kidding. But no, like we always had that perfect chemistry because I felt like styles meshed so well because we could tell that bigger guy, little guy's story, but we also knew each other's stuff and how to sell it. And that match to this day is one of my all-time favorites, without question.
Absolutely.
And
like
times too that I was like I felt like, all right, we're making magic in the ring right now, and it's a pretty addicting, awesome feeling.
It really is, because like some of the stuff like we did and we got such a reaction, and it was always like that right match in front of the right crowd. So you and I can do like that. Like I guess a good example, we had that match in Oswego, and like you're saying, we knew each other so well. So like you knew for your comeback, you couldn't bump and feed me. I'm too big for it. But you're like, oh, what if I come off here?
No.
I'll jump off. I can give you like a drop kick. You turn around and I'll come off and hit a code breaker. That'll spring you up. I can come off and, do the standing moonsault. And that brings you down. That made fucking sense. And it fucking worked. And the crowd popped for it. So much that I remember years later when we're doing the Impact pay-per-view, I go, let's do that fucking double down. Because it works.
It just made sense. And we, and we got compliments from that too, because, and it's funny because anytime like because now it's weird because I always have kids like ask me now who are new, like, hey, I'm wrestling a big guy. Like, I don't really know what to do. I can't bump and feed him. And I'm like, oh my God, you're in the best position ever. Like, do this and that. You know what I mean? And like, I don't give him what we did, but I give him an idea of what we did and how we made it work. And now I watch like kids like TJ Epics do that, or his partner Chael, or there's a lot of good young kids right now who it's cool to be able to do what we did and pass it off to to the next generation. So
I've been in plenty of matches with like smaller guys, and they'll always do like, well, I don't want to bump you. And I'm like, well, you don't have to. I go, here's what we can do. I go, we're going to build up to this. So then when you do bump me, it's going to make a whole lot of sense. And the crowd's going to, buy into it.
Exactly.
Sort of thing. And, kind of going back and talking about like creating that magic and chasing it. Because I was going to say, like, we wrestled each other singles like other places. And we did that one match in Phelps for UW.
Yeah.
It was a really good match. It was a great match. I loved it.
Yeah.
I don't think the crowd appreciated it as much as any other would.
Yeah, they didn't. But it was weird because I was a heel and you were babyface.
Yes, so that's right. Yeah, we had to switch it. Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Which was like we were able to rock and roll with it because I was like, oh, I'll just be, the shitbag, kind of whatever heel, and you're just the big ass kicker. Like we were able to figure it out and make it work. Yeah. They the people of Phelps, all 13 of them didn't really appreciate what we were doing. So
it was like, oh wow, look at him go. But it's funny you mentioned that because it was the same situation in WXWC4 when you're the tag champions. You guys were heels and we were the baby. And I was staying over at Graham's house before one of the times we wrestled each other. Because I think we did a double shot. It must have been like 2CW or something for her. So we're going down the next day and we're in his living room hanging out, getting ready to go. And I just look over him. I go, hey, Graham, I'm going to take the heat today. He's like, what? I go, we got to do something different. I'm going to take the heat. You can take the hot tag. I'm going to show Cage you can do it.
I'm glad that at least you offered to be a bigger man to take the heat. I was never given that that respect. I was always the one that would take the heat. So
no, I made sure every now and then I would try.
Bro, like I remember one time, like I think it was Josh. I want to say it was Josh in Austin. They like watched a couple CK matches and they're like, "Wow, man!" I'm like, "What?" They're like, "You're a part of the shine. You take all the heat, you somehow do the comeback, and you're there for the finish." And I'm like, Yeah. Polish Hammer. Nelson. Aye. Those are done.
Let's see. What do we got here? I missed a couple chats. So great matches, especially those street fights. Yeah, I gotta say, when going back earlier when we were talking about us trying to like hang and hang with all those bigger names, that show was main evented by Rob Van Dam and Sam McCallahan, and I still had people tell us we were match of the night in that no holds barred match we had, and that like
100%.
was definitely my favorite tag match we had. I had so much fun in that match, beating each other senseless with cookie sheets. I finally got to suplex somebody onto a ladder in the corner, which I've always wanted to do. We did those fucking things where you and Graham looked at each other and shrugged, and he dived on us. Like, everything about it was great. And the only thing that like sucks is there's no commentary on it, but I felt like that really would have added to it. But that match, I hands down agree, stole the show, and I think we had a better match than Van Dam McCallahan that night for some reasons, but I still think we did.
Without a doubt. And it was funny too, because that was one of those times where I really was able to trick trades. You and I think we did the spot where you were on the outside and I was going to come through the ropes for a tope, but you had that cookie sheet and you turn right around and boom, and I sold that like I get knocked out. And I'll never forget when in and he goes, "Oh my God, are you dead? Please talk." Yeah, it was hit him, but yeah, man, those cookie sheets are brutal, bro. Like,
I was we were just talking about that to my wife the other day. We were talking about those cookie sheets with Graham, and she didn't know that Graham took those from like his college, and those are like the ones that you got from like the cafeteria that you'd actually bake shit on there, and not like the thin dollar store ones. Those are like legit fucking solid ass fry. Yeah.
Of just metal, like, and we beating the ever living shit out of each other with these damn things. Like,
they made great noises. I do remember also with those damn sheets. I remember us saying like, "Oh, we're gonna build to them. We're gonna do them. Like, we're gonna bring them out here. We're gonna do this big reveal." Because it was supposed to be like Cage and I are supposed to be on opposite sides of the ring, and we're both going to pull them out and like look at them and like throw them into the ring and get like this big moment. And I remember stuff was going on, and like a minute in, I turn around and Cage comes at me with a fucking cookie sheet, and I was like, "No, what are you doing? You're blowing the spot." He just got really excited.
Brother, we're going there already. Oh my gosh.
Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. Whenever you tell me you've got a match against Carr, I know it's gonna be a good one. You always in sync. You always hear wrestlers talking about like having chemistry together. Hands down, Carr and I, we got that chemistry, and 100%. I know it's gonna be a fun night at the office, so that always gets me excited. There is a card in Greater Binghamton area tomorrow without its king. What the fuck? The county needs to intervene. Carr, any comment on that?
I am on that card.
Well, there you go. Breaking news. Speaking from experience, every match Sean and I have had were matches that keep getting better, and it's different every time. It's great to learn from you guys and what you're trying, and what I'm trying to say. That's from Mr. Yee, Gary Holiday.
Another hired gun there. Hired guy, tell him to shine that title up, though, because next week I'm gonna take it from him. You know what I'm saying?
Daddy. That looks really good on the hired gun mantle.
Yeah, like really quick. Garrett Holiday, one of the good ones, man. He really is. He's a kid. He's always been a good kid, and he's turned himself into quite the professional wrestler. And I'm excited to wrestle him. I have like same chemistry with him like I do with you, Brew. And he is this is the put over moment. He is he's a gem. You know, I honestly feel that if he was around a few years before with all of us, he would have been in 2CW. And I think he's one of those guys where he just needs a few more really big matches with some top tier talent to really break up certain, but dude all around.
Yeah, that's. I don't want to say that's like an issue or a problem like today, but it does seem like that the wrestling scene is a bit different now than it was. I would say even like 2014, 2015, where there's not as many of those big time names of talents that you get a chance to work with that can bring you to the next level. I'm not saying they're not out there, that doesn't happen, but it seems like, because like I'm wrestling Madman Fulton next weekend, and this is probably like the biggest match I've had in years. You know, I've had a lot of good matches, I work a lot of great guys, but you know, it's a guy on TV, been through the system. Like I can get better work in them. They're just fewer and far between these days.
Those contracts, man, everyone locks. You know, everybody locks into exclusive deals. But I think the other thing too is like the pay thing is a lot different back then to what now. And I mean, it's a good thing at some point, but I mean, sometimes people really have to be like, okay, like, it is independent wrestling, and you know, just because you have 13,000, 14,000 followers on Instagram doesn't mean you're $500 or $600.
Yeah, when the fuck did the number of Twitter followers start determining like your booking? I have heard this multiple times from a lot of people who said like, oh, when I book people, I go and see how many Twitter followers they have. Is that how they're basing like how good they are, or are they basing how much clout their company's going to get from them because of their followers?
I kid you not. I inquired to somebody. I won't throw names out there with this, but I did inquire to somebody over the summertime about, hey, what's the best way to go about Impact? You know, try out. Like I wasn't, you know, you don't know unless you ask. You know what I mean? And that person told me that unless you have a giant social media following, or you are a formerly released NXT guy, they will not look. So it's like, okay. But then on the flip side, I asked other people about like other companies like AEW, and you get mixed things. It's either you got to be an independent darling, or you have to be not known at all so they can mold you the way they want. So it's the weirdest thing. I've heard every side of the coin on each thing. So that's why right now, like, dude, like, it's crazy. Like, I've done the AEW things. I was able to do like 4 of them. I only wrestled once. I did a security gig one other time, and I sat in catering the other 2 times. But you know, that, like, it's nothing against anybody who does that. Like, you should do those anytime you can. You definitely should. But for me, like, I'm about to be 35 on the next go around. Like, I just kind of want to have fun at this point in my life. Like, you know, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. If not, you know what I mean? Like, dude,
oh no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, like, it's like, you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's after a while, like, you and I, we've been doing this for quite a bit. You can say that we're the seasoned veterans of locker rooms now, and you know, to see how much it's changed, just in like 6 years or 7 years. It's like that would have never back in the day, and we're only going like 5 years back. Like, we're not even
100%.
going.
100%. I remember I was talking to someone and I was like, when I was training in Syracuse, so like 2009, 2010, so much stuff was drilled in my head. Your reputation is always 3 locker rooms ahead of you.
Yep.
You got to do this. You do it this way. This is how you pay your dues. If you can make someone like $1 million, you'll always get a booking. If you do this and you do that, and then like even by the time I started wrestling, I could see it was different. But then like looking back from when I started wrestling to now, it is like a completely different environment, a completely different thing. I don't even want to know what it's like for people like Slick or anybody who's been wrestling like before that, Cheech, Colin, all those guys from before. Like, just from 2010, man, this is not the business I started in, and it's so different.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like, there's some aspects that are better, but there's a lot that are like, man, okay, like just those like the knew when somebody had heat at 2CW, because 2CW ran so old school, and I feel like that's why nobody, like, it was that to just think that they can walk in and own the place, and that's what you need in pro wrestling. And I feel like now, like, there's just so many people who, and it's hard too, bro, because guys like you and me, we have no problem maybe policing a locker room. But my gosh, if you're mean to anybody, I'm gonna go to online and you're not gonna get booked anymore. It's just it's just, you know, I remember when I started, you know, way back in the day, because I was like a year ahead of you. I started in like late 2008, early 2009, and like, yeah, like I remember, you know, dudes literally like getting into fights in the back, people getting literally kicked out of locker rooms, like their bag thrown out, and like you just don't see that stuff today. And there's a lot of positives though, like that it's not as toxic as it was back then, because I mean there was some locker rooms back then that were pretty, those mid 2000 guys that, you know, were still holding on when they probably should have let it go. But yeah, man, it's crazy how much it's changed, and how, you know, I always tell everybody, like, social media has been the best thing for wrestling and also the worst. And
I've said that so many times.
And that's not even just with wrestling. That's with so much more. That's with like life in general, because it's like everybody like thinks that their opinion, like, people care. Like, they don't. Like it's just, I don't know. I feel like too many people think that they should say something when maybe they shouldn't, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I get that. And I guess kind of going back to, like, you know, how I was trained and all that stuff that was put in my brain, which I'm very proud of how I was brought up. I'm very proud of like the stuff that was put into my head, and like how you treat wrestling and all that stuff. And I'm not saying like it hasn't gotten me into trouble places, but you know, a lot of people do respect it and things. But like, I remember one time going to training, and Springgate literally grabbed me and Graham, pulled us aside, and we're like, "What the fuck are you two doing?" And we're like, "What do we do?" He's like, "Well, I'm being told people are slacking off on ring crew, and you know, people aren't showing up to training and all this stuff." He's like, "You two have been here long enough. You need to start policing the, you know, people at the school. If someone's on a line, you gotta fucking, like, you know, pull them aside and yell at them and smack them up, and you gotta start policing this shit." And we're just like, "Oh fuck, we do that now? All right, yeah, sure, we'll start policing it." And we had to start doing that. We had to start keeping trainees in line. We had to, like, you know, make sure they're doing the shit. We had to make sure they shut up when they needed to listen. You know, shit like that. And I don't think anyone's sold that shit anymore.
No. And the recently, like, I've had to deal with a couple situations at Excite where certain people, you know, have felt entitled.
Man, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that one.
And the whole, I never heard it, but I've had many people tell me. Some people would say, I won't do ring crew unless I'm paid to do ring crew. And that went up one side of me and down the other. And like, listen, I get along with almost everybody. I really do. Like, I've always prided myself in trying to be cool and funny and nice and whatever to as many people as possible. But when you disrespect the business that I do love and I do care about, and I feel should, you know, people should be brought in a certain way. Cause like, here's the thing, like, I didn't set up as many times with you guys, but I always tore down at 2CW, always. And we'd be there till the wee hours of the morning, right?
Oh yeah.
And I felt like that also made us all really close, because like, we cared about the company, we cared about the product, we cared about our craft. And when I hear young people now, they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to do that unless I'm getting paid," I just really want to say, "Fuck are you?" Like, I remember doing ring crew with Spiked Up. So like, you know, I remember Brody was signed to WWE and he was helping take down the ring and putting it in the truck. on one of his last.
I've had kids, and I've seen kids and heard kids, and they're either like, oh, well, I'm wrestling now, I don't got to do ring crew. I've had these many matches, I don't have to do ring crew, or I've done ring crew this long, and I don't have to do it anymore. And I was like, man, that's funny, because I started training for 2CW. I was doing ring crew. I had my first match, I did ring crew. I wrestled Raven once, I did ring crew that night. Hey, guess what? Every single time I won the 2CW tag team titles, I was doing ring crew.
Yeah.
The fucking Living on the Edge, the first pay-per-view, we did that match. That was night 2, man. Freaking we're in Rome the first night. We what the hell did we do? Oh, Graham and I wrestled Scum, Steve Carino and Jimmy Jacobs. I did ring crew, tore down, went back to my apartment in Oneida, got 3 hours of sleep because we had to be in Watertown at 7 in the morning to start doing all the ring crew and shit. Wrestled that battle royal, tore the thing down, went back to Syracuse, so tired I almost crashed my car because I thought I saw Slender Man on the side of the road trying to kill me. And I loaded that truck, and I got back Sunday morning at like 5 a.m. Just slept all day, and then went to work the next day.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So it's like, now it's like, I mean, like I'll help when I can. Obviously, like you and me, like you're never done paying your dues in the business, you never are. But like you do get to a point, I feel that like, okay, guys like you and me that have been doing it a decade plus, and there's a whole brand new batch of brand new guys where we were at 10 years ago. Now it's your turn to get it. That's just how the business works. It's how the business has always worked. Yeah. And when you hear somebody who barely, hasn't even done anything, and I just mean like barely has 50 matches under the belt, and they say that, that's when it's a problem. And the situation has been dealt with, and that person or persons were talked to, and now they do ring crew every time they have to. But again, like that's just one example of many times that and it's not like that everywhere. Like I know the few times I've been to ESW, Brett runs a really tight ship, and it reminds me a lot of how 2CW was. And everyone's doing the ring, doing the production, doing what they can to get it torn down so we can get out of there and whatever. But it's just, but then again, like I guess it's also like a good way to like to pat to how we're on in the business, because we were out and not just, okay, like I know how to bump, now I'm owed a paycheck. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's so like, I don't know, like, but yeah, man, it's definitely different business than what it was when we broke in.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like I said, like some stuff is better from it. Like it can, a lot of it probably not so much. Like, I mean, I guess a huge difference now. I remember, like when I was still training right before I started, like, wrestling matches, like Josh would come into training sometimes, run shit, probably keeping an eye on things, seeing who's doing what, who's going to be getting to do what on shows, who's doing crew, who's putting in training. And he had like what would you call it? I don't know, he always had questions they'd ask new kids, either right at the beginning, he'd come back and ask them a new set of questions a few months later and blah, blah. But I remember he'd always go up to people and be like, why are you here? Why do you want to be a wrestler? Oh, I want to be a wrestler because, I've been a fan all my life. I really look up to Stone Cold Steve Austin and blah, blah, blah. And Josh is like, fuck that. I'll never get in the business right now. Wrestling sucks. It's like, there's no money in it. Nobody cares.
That was literally the first thing that I said. Hey, when I first met him, I was like, "Hey, my name's Sean. And pleasure to meet you. Thank you for the booking." He goes, "Let me ask you a question." I was like, "Yeah, why do you want to be in this business?" I'm like, "Well, I'm already in this business." and yeah. So, but yeah, it's funny because like I'll even ask people that when they first come in with Excite, and they say they want to be pro wrestlers. I'm like, well, why? I want to know why. And you get a lot of answers, oh, it's my dream. All right, cool, sweet, let's see what you got. You know what I mean? But you can always tell the ones who we're gonna weather away just based on that.
100%. I saw so many people come and go at the school. You know, some of them are all like, yeah, this is great. I love it. I'm going to be back. And then never see him again. Or you see the guys who, like, by the end of the night, they're already like hunched over walking. Just like, and you're just like, well, maybe we'll see him in a month, but we're definitely not going to see him on Thursday. And dude, there's this one guy. I'm not gonna name names, but there's this one dude who came in, man, and he moved back into the area. He went off somewhere, and he said he was training in like Connecticut or something for a couple months. But he came down acting like, you know, he's a grizzled vet. You know, he's a seasoned fucking trainee and shit. And it got to the point, because this is when Graham and I were pretty much in charge of training. Spring 8 would show up, do a shit, leave. Me and Graham would run shit. And we'd be working with the new kids and be like, okay, well, here, you know, you dragged your foot or you did this. And he'd always be like, yeah, and he was doing this and he was doing this. And we're just like, shut the fuck up. You're not running class. You're at the end of the line. Oh, shut up. But you know, it'd get to the point and we'd be like, all right, man. So, you know, we're wrestling in, you know, Rome this weekend. So, you know, be here at the school at this time. We'll do this this time, blah, blah, blah. And every fucking month, man, he'd be like, oh, man, I'm out of town. I'm on a cruise. And he would never, ever do ring crew. He'd never show up to the shows. He'd just come in, train, just always have an excuse not to do it. And then one day he's just like, stop showing up. And the next thing you know, we see him wrestling somewhere after like 3 months of training.
That's usually how it goes. I'm going to take you with me so I can go get a drink. I'm a little parched. You have a drink, and I didn't prepare.
I warned you. I said grab something, Daddy. I was like, make sure you grab something. You're too busy razzling with Twitter.
Oh, bro, that was a thing and a half.
Well, we can use this time to catch up on chat here. What did I miss? Let me scroll up here. Garrett, an ECW legend, told me the same thing with a social media following. I'm not surprised. I first heard that from someone on Impact who runs their own company, and they're like, "Oh, always check their followers first." Agent, you can buy Twitter followers. I guess that's true. That's a way to get around it. Agent, wait, ring crew gets paid. What in the hell? No, not on this level. You've got a lot to catch up on. Sorry. You didn't ring crew when you were tag champs? Yeah. Even when I moved out here, I wasn't able to do load and unload, but I still did set up and tear down. So I was doing ring crew from like, you know, day one until it closed. And I remember we're on a car ride one time. And it was like me, Graham, Isis, Freddie, and we're kind of talking about ring crew. And Freddie's just like, yeah, one day I did ring crew. I came in, I set down a guardrail. I walked over here to get something else, and I just never came back. I was like, all right. I was like, I'm not going to do that. Josh will fucking kill me.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we gotta get around to this here. So we talked about our great match in Binghamton.
Go ahead, throw it. Lay it on.
This is where all the views are, Daddy. So, fun fact: I've said this before. Kevin Graham and I are the only multi-time tag team champions. We're the only ones who've won it. More than ones who won it 3 times, and all 3 times. We were never supposed to win the tag titles. Not a single one. There was one time we were going to win them on purpose. When we wrestled Cook and Cage in Rome, we were supposed to win the tag titles. But because Graham was like taking less dates and didn't want to do as much, I wanted more singles. So Josh decided not to put him on us so I can do more singles. So they took him off, and he asked what a good tag team would be, and I actually suggested Jason Axe and Kevin Steen, and he liked it, so that's why he put the tag titles on him.
And that's I always wonder how that came about.
There was 2 teams I pitched before that. Before I went with Jason Axe and Kevin Steen, because like they're very similar, they'd be cool. But I said Jay Freddy and Brandon Thurston kind of do like some sort of British Bulldogs thing. He didn't want to book Thurston. And then I said, what about CK 3.0. He's like, what? I go, CK 3.0. Carr and Kevin. What if you put Kevin Graham and Sean Carr together? I go, people will love it. He laughed, but it's like, no. So the third and final time we won the tag titles, Binghamton, New York, 99 problems. Boy, were there some problems. So, where do we start? I guess we'll start where this match was doomed from the get-go. We were put on last,
Straight from the
which one
right from...
I was real excited about, grateful for, but I kind of knew why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he definitely didn't want anyone leaving before the main event in the crowd. So keeping the hometown guys on till the end, smart move.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not a smart move is putting the Young Bucks and the Dojo Bros right on before us.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. But we were up to the task. Now, according to legend, the Chris were added to just give us some name value. Kind of put it over the hump.
So when I was told that they were in the match, it was because Josh said at the time, like, they were both like I think they were like W tag champs, like they were making a run on the indies, like they were like, you thought that they were okay, they're gonna be something. And they were working for a while too. Like they were already like, 10, 15 years in at that point.
Yeah, because they were like the Irish Airborne or in Ring of Honor or something like that before.
Yep. So when Josh told me, he goes, "Hey, I'm gonna have the Chris." At first, I was like, "I don't think we need him, man. Like, if we do what we did back in, back in the Van Dam show, like I think we'll be all right."
Yeah.
And then I want to add him because it'll be crazy. It'll give you the guys name value and all that good stuff. So that's how they got added.
Yeah, that's sounds about right. And I agree with you. I feel now going in, I said like right off the bat, like no one knows who we're gonna be on this pay-per-view because living on the edge, we were like trending. We had like however 100,000 views, whatever was going on. So I was like, a lot of people aren't gonna know who Pentagram and Carr and Cage are. But I was like, if you can just play like a 3-minute video before our match that just shows why we're having this match, people can be invested in it.
Yeah,
100%. They'll know what they're expecting. They'll know the history, and they will feed off that Binghamton crowd.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I agree.
So, yeah, if we were able to just go full fucking ECW in Binghamton with all that stuff again, I think we could have done it. But I get, giving us a rub with a name and all that, and maybe under better circumstances, maybe in an alternate universe, we're all wrestling each other on AEW for the tag titles. I don't know, but it didn't really go that way because the way the match started, we didn't even get ring introductions.
No,
and
it was a pretty much the way that they wanted to design it was, you guys were beating up Cage through the crowd, and then you guys get him, and I'm not there yet. I'm I'm nowhere to be found yet. And then I think you guys threw him in the ring and the bell rang to start the match, and then you immediately put him through a table.
Yeah, but looking back, I'm not even sure if the bell even rang. I think we put him to the table before the bell even rang. I might be wrong, but yeah, we came through the crowd, through the back door, beat him up, and then put him through a table.
Yeah, I think that was the idea because Cage wasn't really known for a big time bumper, and I was the more exciting of the two.
As was Kevin.
Ring one. but so I got the point, like, okay, like immediately, like the hometown babyface is at a disadvantage, but you did it in a smart way because the older, bigger guy who doesn't really bump, like we still in the match, but now like we all can work around that. He can sell. So when we come back for the finish, for the comeback and the finish, the underdog team, you know, is gonna rally back. So like booking wise, it made sense.
Yes.
Now, fortunately, the way that the match happened, it shot all of us in the foot.
Right. Because now you got the main event. You just got finished watching the Bucks and the Dojo Bros, Roddy Strong and Eddie Edwards. Now out of the crowd, here comes three people we've never seen before. Two big bald guys and some little, I mean, kind of that little, but like a generic looking indie dude if you don't know who he is. We're just dudes in tights. So we come out, we're beating up this guy, we put him to the table. People are like, well, what the fuck's going on? They just won. They put him to the table. But now the commentators are confused because nobody told them that once you're eliminated, you can stick around. Because I remember Josh very adamantly saying, like, you're eliminated, but you can stay out there and keep wrestling. You're just already eliminated. But the commentator's like, oh, we got to get Cage out of here. He's eliminated. So so there's more confusion. And then the whole time that's going on, well, where's Carr? Well, here comes Carr. So now we're wrestling. Well, wait a minute. Where's the Chris?
Yeah.
So the Chris take like another 2 minutes to come out. And then finally they're out there. So now you got 6 guys. Yeah. One, you don't know if he's eliminated or the whole team's eliminated. And then another team that you don't even know the names of yet because they just showed up out of nowhere. So we're already off to a pretty difficult start.
So we start wrestling and we start hitting all the spots that we were calling, and then we get to the dreaded spot. And you know, almost 15 year in this veteran wrestler, Sean Carr is now looking back at it going, that spot makes no sense at all. But at the time, it wasn't my spot to call, and it wasn't your guys' spot. I hate to put the heat on other people because, like, but if it was
an indie spot,
it was an indie spot, and I remember that I want to say like we questioned it a little bit, and they're like, "Nah, it's fine, it's cool, it's because." You know, you guys want to eliminate them, not us. But anyway, the spot was, I did a bunch of stuff. Here come the Chris. They do a bunch of stuff. Then we did a waterfall type deal where it was like everyone was just like, and now we're gonna start teasing. So all I remember was they said, "Hey, we're gonna put you on the table and set up like somebody is going to I think the we'll call him the canceled Chris." Was going
there you go.
Was going to do a springboard moonsault, but instead Graham was supposed to stop him because he wanted to eliminate CK because that's where the heat was at. Mm-hmm. And I don't really all I remember is this because the next day I felt like I was on I was being investigated for murder. I had Josh can call, and they're like, "Tell us what the fuck happened."
Same.
Don't lie.
Same.
So all I remember that Jake Chris, the non-canceled Chris, had me on the table. At the time, I believe he had the long blonde hair because I remember that. And he had me on the table, and it was like a little breather for me, because I was able to kind of okay, get my wits, think what's coming up, and he was kind of calling spots back to me, and the cancel one was supposed to do Kevin was going to stop him and whatever. Well, I don't know if Kevin wasn't there or what happened, but all of a sudden I remember Jake said, "Oh shit," and he let go. And I looked up, and by the time the canceled one is already I'm already through a table. I had no reaction time at all. I had no and as soon as I went through the table, I'm sitting there and I was like, what did you just fucking do? That what the? I was pissed. Like, I was hot because I was like, okay, so what now? You know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
What?
I know.
And like I just know I'll never forget. Like I looked over and Kevin Graham just did one of these.
Yeah. So
and
from what I hear
trades
with Kevin, he was like down in the corner, right? Like in the turnbuckle, kind of like seated down, sort of. And I guess he was supposed to get up and stop him, but I guess Kevin was too slow, and he said he just kind of did like a kick to like try to like kick his leg because he knew he didn't have time to get up, but he totally like whiffed it. So there was nothing there. So he just went through the moonsault, and then that's what happened.
I remember in their very Ohio style way of talking, they're like, "Well, I had to commit the damn move because otherwise I'm looking like an idiot." And I remember I was like, "Hey, asshole, we all look like idiots now because, like, why didn't you just pretend to trip? Like, oh, your foot slipped. Oh, that would have been it, you know what I mean? And instead, like, you just committed to the move, like, and like I'll never understand that. And we because you were still out there wrestling, y'all had to call like a shoot finish.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what my world was like in that next few minutes.
Okay.
All
right.
So like
those will be two sides. I like this.
So I roll out. I look at trades. And I'm pissed. I'm like, fuck Kevin Graham. Oh, it was so bad. Like, I was like, rah, you know. So he's just like, fellas, you got to go to the back. I don't know what to tell you. Josh is back. And like, Josh came out. And Josh was like, what the shit is going on? So we get to the back of the Legion. And it's in that hallway that we always had for Gorilla. And on the side of the hallway, there was like the kitchen was like right off. For those who do not know, like in the Legion, like when you go through that curtain, the locker room's sometimes upstairs. It used to be always downstairs, but now it's always up.
Yeah, thanks a lot, karate.
Yeah, karate, stupid karate. There's a kitchen where they make the food, and on that wall, there's like a bunch of like pots and pans, like shelves and pots and pans. And we get back there, and Cage is going Hulk smash back there. He is just, I mean, tearing up everything. And I think it was Strangler that was like, calm down. We're trying to figure it out. Calm down. And he was just like so beside himself, mad. Rightfully so. I get it because it was a big fuck up, but we were supposed to go over and we were going to have a good moment and whatever. But yeah, it was like one of those things where it was like, what do we do? And Josh just kept, you could tell that Josh and Strangler were like, they were thinking like, all right, we could send him back out. No, we can't because they're eliminated. It wouldn't make sense, yada, yada, yada. And then finally Josh was like, I'm sorry, guys, just go upstairs and change. So we turn around, you guys went up, we walk upstairs and get in any of that if you want your side of the story, and then we can
okay, all right.
I can pick up where
all right, so I'll tell my side and then we'll reconvene up in the locker room. So when this spot was being called, I was kind of like listening to it because after that waterfall, I get bumped and I roll to the outside. I'm laying down on the floor on the outside, and they're like, you just stay there, and then once you see somebody up on the turnbuckle, that's when you come up back in and we'll do like the next spot or whatever. And I like knowing like what's before my stuff, like, you know, like what's happening. So I'm like, well, what's the spot? And one of them was like, oh, don't worry about it, just wait for this thing. And I'm like, okay. I knew there's something with the table. I knew there's something with like some moonsault or something, but I didn't know what the whole thing was. I didn't know Kevin was supposed to stop him and all that shit. I just knew there's supposed to be this one thing, and then someone was going up, and then that's when I come back up and we keep going. So I'm laying out on the floor, and I'm on the ring side. So right on my side is like the wall where you go in to get the beer and food. So I'm laying there staring up at the corner, and I'm waiting. I'm like, man, this spot's taking a long time. What the fuck's going up on the turnbuckle? And so I'm staring up at there, and all of a sudden, Kevin Graham's face comes into me like this. He just goes, "Get the fuck up! We're winning the tag titles." I was like, "What?" So I get up. I'm seeing Cage fucking going fucking metal gorilla on the fucking outside. You're just like confused, and Graham is pissed. And I'm getting up. And I'm like, "What's going on?" My first thought was, you guys did something to piss Josh off, and we're in the middle of the Montreal screw job. Because I'm just like, what the fuck happened? What do you mean we're winning the tag titles? So I'm getting up, and Kevin Graham's yelling. So he grabs Canceled Chris. He goes, "Put him up on the top and suplex him through the table." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I put him up, and I'm like, butterfly suplex. He goes to the table. Bell rings. New tag team champions. Kevin Graham's, no, we got to put the other fucker through a table. We're not done yet. So I'm just like, oh, okay. So Kevin sets up the table. He goes, "Fucking hold him. I'm coming off with a leg drop." So I got Jake Chris on the table. I'm holding him. I go, "Hey, man, I have no idea what's going on, but I am so sorry." I was like, "I apologize. He's like, "No, brother, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Shit happens. It's good." Crash to the table.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just like, okay, cool. They hand us the tag titles. I'm like, yay, we're the champs. What's going on? And so Kevin's like, "Well, we're fucking going." So I'm like, we get out of the ring. I start walking to the curtain. Kevin grabs me. "No, we're going through the fucking crowd." All right. So we start walking to the back. Some fan leans over who is pissed, and he grabs Kevin, shoves him, and goes to like throw a punch. So I get in between them. I grab the guy and I throw him, and he goes all the way and hits the back wall. And then he like falls down and trips over shit. So now more drunk people are like, "What the fuck are you doing? I'm going to kick your ass." And Graham's like, "No, we're going through the crowd." And I'm like, "I just assaulted somebody. We're outnumbered." So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm Bruiser Broding my way through this crowd. So we go through the crowd. We go through the back door to the hallway with the stairs and the chapel and bathrooms and shit. And I'm like, "Kevin, what's going on? Kevin, what's going on?" Kevin's like, "Fucking." I'm like, "Kevin, what's going on?" We walk in the locker room. Here's where we're going to meet up. So we walk in. Kevin Graham takes a belt, throws it across the room onto a table, starts swearing. I'm standing there holding my tag title. Here comes Jonathan Ash. He hands me a paper, and he goes, "Hey, man, I don't know if you saw this." And I read the paper, and it says, "No changing finishes." Which was in my gear bag for like the next like 5 years. It was like stuck in there. I finally got rid of it. But okay, so that's where I am at this point.
Okay, so we get upstairs, and I'm a pretty level-headed guy. Like, I was pissed, but like I'm at this point where I'm like, figure it out. What it is, can't change it. It is what it is. I at no point did I ever think any heat would come on me, because like if you go back and watch it, and I've never watched it, I can't, because it'll just piss me off.
I don't think I've ever watched it.
But I've never watched it, and I never will watch it, because it was definitely one of the it was a low it was a low point, but I was like, we can always come back, we'll figure something out, and I. I was always like, I couldn't see what was going on. By the time Brother Let Me Go, Canceled was going through me, and I was like, there's nothing I could have done. And that the only thing that like Josh, like they were like, well, you could have rolled off the table. And then I was like, yeah, but look where his hair is. And look where and then when they watched it back, like, yeah, no, you're right. You didn't even see it till he was like on top of you. So, but we're in the locker room. I'm taking my tape off. I remember Steve King coming up to me, and he was like, "Hey, we're gonna talk, but here's your pay." And I was like, "Hey, man, like I don't think I can accept that tonight." He goes, "No, you worked, you're getting paid." I was like, "All right, well, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't." We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna talk. Don't worry about it. And at this point, like, Cage has a towel over him, over his head, and he's in the corner, and he's pretty upset. He's crying. He's that upset. And if you go back and you listen to Kevin Steen's interview on, it was the Stone Cold podcast, when Kevin references a wrestler crying in a locker room over losing a fake title, that was it.
As Josh likes that tells it, he's like, I was in the back there, and Kevin Steen comes over to me and he goes, hey Josh, why is that grown man crying in his mother's arms?
Yeah. So where the heat got on Cage, and at this point I was just trying to separate myself from all of it, because this is like a rule that I feel like everyone should apply. If you're in a movie, like say you're in the next Avengers movie or something, you're not going to tell your friends and family what's going to happen in the movie. Because, like, why would you? You know? And where Cage got the heat was people, his mom, a lot of his friends, that I'm friends with, came up into the locker room, which is a cardinal no-no.
Your dad yelled at me.
No. And they thought that some real shit was going down. And
real quick, I don't know if you know this part, but when Josh and Strangler were talking to us that night, we got pulled into that room overlooking there. We're talking, and some guy comes in, yo, Cage, is everything all right? You okay? And Strangler's like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah. And so, because I was there for that too. And yeah, everyone started coming up, and they were like, but I would probably say that the one part on top of all of that got him alive, he at Josh, and he goes, I just feel like y'all Montreal'd me. Oh. And Josh just like, yeah. And at that point, that is where I remembered the second lesson in pro wrestling. Mouth shut, eyes, ears open. I was like, because I knew right then and there, just from talking with Josh, just from hanging out with him, just from getting to know at least the wrestling side of Josh, I knew like Josh would have never have put us on main event on his internet pay-per-view stream to just fuck us.
Yeah. Oh.
It was clearly a mess up, and the thing that that he was saying is like it was supposed to be my moment, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, man. I was like, yeah, but we're like a tag team, and like I didn't know for sure, because I was always the type where I would whenever Josh and I whenever we would talk, I regret like we haven't talked in a little bit, but like during that time, like when we would like have conversations, we barely ever talked about wrestling, because like I always trusted him. He never gave me a reason not to be like, hey man, what am I doing at the next show? Like I would never ask him, because I knew he always would make sure that whatever I was doing, he was good, and he always took care of me. So, so for Cage to have said that was a huge stuff in the foot. It wasn't too long after that he was out of the company.
Yeah,
I think it was.
What's weird about that? So, excuse me. I remember in that window meeting, Strangler's just like, it's fine. We'll have a rematch next show. We'll put the tag titles back on you. We'll be good. And I remember we had the match, and that didn't happen. Then we had the other match, and it didn't happen. So we held on to the tag titles and had like another run with them up until we did the Living on the Edge 9 pay-per-view. So I'm like, okay, here we go. We've got the Gladiators Ball pay-per-view. Here we go. We went over. So I was like, well, what the fuck? And then we had that multi-man tag the next night in Syracuse, and we dropped them, but they put them on Cage and Cook.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this, but the rumor is that Kevin Graham was next in line for the 2CW heavyweight title.
Okay.
He was supposed to win it in a shock win that no one saw coming and beat ISIS for it. Now, if you recall, somebody else did that.
Yeah.
So because of this match, I heard that's what made a change, which I guess I can get. But at the same time, what was the point of that Syracuse match, especially when a month later, hey, we need to put the belts back on you and Graham. We got to take them off of Cook and Cage. And I'm not saying this like, oh, he's stupid, didn't know what he's doing. I don't know, was there something going on? I know this was to get you away from Cage to do singles. And so I know that, but I don't know if there's something else where they made the new CK and put the tag titles on them.
So it was around this time that I was told, hey, we're gonna break you and Cage up. And I was like, okay.
Go for it, a good time.
I was like, hey, if that's what you guys need. And Josh just said, he was like, you're good. And we got to find out just how good you are. And I was like, okay. I didn't take that with anything. And then it wasn't too long after that like he had me tagging with like X-Pac against like guys. He had me he started having me have like singles matches, and then he gave me the big test, and that was Eddie Edwards in Rome, New York. And when he told me, he was like, this is literally your shot. I'm literally putting you in there with one of the best in the world. See what you got. And after that match, I think they were just like, we have something here. Because I started to get over a lot. And it was, it was Eddie. And then it was, there was Colin. Colin was in there. And then there was JT Dunn. And then it was like, okay, it's not just a flash in the pan, one good match, and now the rest are stinkers. And then you and I, it was around that time where we had that match, and it was like, okay, there's something here. And I don't want to say that that's what it was, because the only one to answer that would be Josh and probably Strangler. But I think like I was the one guy where maybe they didn't expect me to really come out of that whole situation smelling like roses like I did. And I felt like everything they threw at me, I knocked it out of the park. And I had matches with Freddie that were really good. And they were putting me over on a lot of these. And the crowd was really getting behind me. And then that's when the Ando feud happened.
Right.
And I don't want to take anything away from Kevin, because I'm sure that's what the plan was. But I just think like organically, they were like, okay, maybe we just keep Kevin with Brute. And Sean's really cooking with gas right now with what he's doing. Because I'll be honest with you, man, like I knew that was my one shot. Like if I wanted to have a serious, solid singles career, I had to deliver with Eddie, and I did. And that was that one match that really got me over. And that's what changed, I think, a lot of the dynamic of booking in 2CW.
it's weird because I got like a completely different but similar situation after, where like me and Graham, we stuck together for a little bit, but this is also the same time when I mentioned earlier when I talked to Josh about Graham telling me, he was like, oh, I'm graduating college, I'm taking less bookings, I'm just going to do GSW, 2CW, WXWC4, I'm not taking anything new on. So I had the conversation with Josh, and I was like, hey, look, like, I'm just asking if I can get more singles matches because one, I need the experience, because if I'm going to get more bookings, it's going to be on my own, like not with Kevin. So like 2CW is the best place I'm going to get that experience, the best opponents. And then also it would really suck if, me and Graham did have like a great match with somebody and then someone's like, oh, I want to book you guys. And Kevin Graham's like, no, I can't do it. Like, so I told him, I was like, Graham and I can still tag, which we did every now and then, but I was like, I just want more singles. And this is when like that started happening, which is why when he's like, I got to put the tag titles on you and Graham in Rome, he didn't, because I was going to do more singles, and he didn't want to put me in a situation where I had to tag. So like after that, when we dropped the tag titles, I can't exactly remember the exact route, but I started gaining more momentum. Like Strangler came up to me, he goes, you know who you are? You're the human torture chamber. Like, that's what you are. And I'm like, fuck yeah. So I started like getting more single stuff. I started doing more like monstery stuff. And I remember having a conversation with Josh. I was like, look, indie wrestling is very niche. They book guys based on what they need. I need a high flyer who could do flips. Okay, I can book Sean Carr. And when someone's like, I need a big monster to brawl and, tear shit up, I want them to think I need a book brew. So I was like, can we kind of take me in that way? And that show in Binghamton, I didn't have a match, and they come up to me, they're like, okay, you're gonna kill Austin. And I was like, okay. They're like, then you're gonna wrestle Isis and you're gonna kill him. And I'm like, all right. So I kill Austin Hope with just the fucking lariat. I'm like, no, I want more. Out comes Isis. I ended up fucking power bombing him into oblivion and giving him a concussion, because Isis has always wanted me to give him the blonde bombshell, Candido's power bomb off the top rope. But I always said no. Like, I don't trust that move. So we compromised, and I was just sitting on the top, and he went for her crown, and I came off, and he still fucking whipped his head. So I felt bad about that. But that's when they're like, oh, you want to be the monster of 2CW? You want to be the monster around here? Well, you're going to have to you earn that, so you're going to start wrestling like the Necro Butcher in Elmira and shit. So Isis is a maniac. Yes, he is.
100%. Without question.
So yeah, like me and Graham, we stuck around a little bit, but I did end up kind of going that way. I started having my matches with a Necro Butcher. I can't remember what other. The Canadian guy who's now blacklisted. I did get to wrestle and beat him the night before he wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom for a world title, so that was cool. So yeah, I kind of had the same thing, but they're kind of testing me like, can you be that monster sort of thing? And it kind of stems back to, I was kind of like really bummed like when Brody left. Like I was like, well, I'm the next big guy here, like I want to do that, but I was in the tag team, so they brought in some other big guy to be the new Brody, who didn't end up filling those shoes and didn't last very long. But like ever since then, I was like, that's my role. I want to be that. And eventually that's what kind of worked in. And when you needed, we're kind of like the Freebirds. We tagged when we needed, we did singles we needed, and yeah, we kind of started going from there. Oh, I mean, Josh can be very Joshy. Josh can be very Joshy. That is 100%.
Josh can be very.
So the last thing I really wanted us to touch on that I feel like is kind of big, like we mentioned earlier, we had that match for Impact on their pay-per-view, the one night only. It was a great match. It was a great time. But we kind of also have like, we have a history and a parallel story with us in Ring of Honor that I feel like we should probably talk about, because we never really have, like, with anybody ever.
Haven't. No.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of started like, I started doing those camps. I know you did a few. And
Yep.
So my first camp I did with them, I went down there. Think that was the camp that like Flip Morgan got signed on. I know JT Dunn was down there, and JD Drake was down there. And so it's 2 nights. For anyone who doesn't know, what they used to do is you go down there, and it would start at like, I think like 6, and it was only supposed to go to like so long, but I ended up going to like 1 or 2 in the morning every time. Everyone I've ever did.
They go forever.
So they'd split you up. One crew would do stuff in the ring. The other crew would be in the promo room. You break. They give you lunch. You switch. And at the end of the night, they put on like a card and everyone has like matches. And I remember at the end of the first night, I was on my match. I was around ringside watching. I get a tap on the shoulder and I get pulled into the back room by, what was his name? I think Jay Diesel, I think was his name.
Yeah.
And it was like me, JT Dunn. I wish I could remember the other guys who were like, had the indie cred. And he's just like, I just want you all to know you're the guys that they're watching. They're all like considering you. They're all super impressed with you. Like, JT Dunn, you got the super indie name and this and this. And he goes to me, he goes, nobody knew who the fuck you were tonight. Like nobody know who you were, but now like they're super impressed with like how good you've been doing. And I was like, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like they didn't know who I was, but now they're just like, oh, maybe we should, look at this guy. So that was kind of my beginning of getting my foot in the door at this time with the Ring of Honor. I'm not sure if yours was similar. Did you take the same route doing the tryouts?
Yeah. So I did one of the, and for my camp, there wasn't really a lot of notable people. There was a lot of their trainees. That are already working there for a while. But I actually impressed Kevin Kelly. I would say it was about 6 months to a year before I did the camp, because at the time I was wrestling a lot in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And Kevin is a native of the central Pennsylvania area. So
really?
Kevin would shows.
I always knew him as a New England guy.
No. He was a New England guy when he was in WWE. But no, he's native. He lives in central PA. A little bit away from like towns last I knew. But he would, anytime he had free time away from Ring of Honor, because he wasn't really doing the New Japan deal yet, he would pop indie shows and you just check them out. And so would Hunter or Delirious. And LCW was really booking a lot of the Ring of Honor Monster Factory guys. So that's made connections with QT, the Punisher Martinez, WWE now, and Matt Riddle and all those guys are kind of like getting their feet wet, getting over in the indies. So that's how I originally impressed Kevin Kelly, but it's kind of the same thing. I went down there, I did the tryout, but what happened at our tryout was the ring ended up breaking. So that moved the second day to the Monster Factory. So we go to do the Monster Factory, and anybody who's watching this, or they're long days. Like Brute's not kidding. Like, you'd start at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and you would go till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. It was brutal. But I remember I rode down with Mark Krieger. Yeah, he was doing a lot of those at the time.
Yeah, because the rumor was you just keep doing them, and eventually they'll put you on a show or use you or some shit like that. So he was doing all of them.
It was definitely something like that. Or it's like anytime they came around your area and you were there, they would use you as an extra or whatever. But yeah, so I did the first day. I cut a really good promo. In-ring was always there. When you work the indies like we were doing at the time, like we knew a lot of. It's always more comfortable when you go into these things knowing some of the stars that are already there. So I did a good promo. At the time, Steve Carino was there. He was really cool. He was kind of, directing and saying, this is what we're going to look for. We're obviously like, I knew going in that they had an eye on for me. But what really got me over was the second day when I had to do my match. They do things to test you.
Yes.
They knew I could go in there with any of their guys and killed it. Would have had a great match. But my test was they put me in there with somebody who never wrestled on a show before, ever. His very first, I don't even think the guy's wrestling anymore, but his very first match ever was me in this camp. And the match was great. It was fine, but there was one thing that happened. Like, I was able to carry him through it. I was a heel, so that was easy. So to start his comeback, I said, hey man, I'll miss a moonsault and then I could sell right up and you can go right into a basic bump and feed, because he knew how to do that, because he's like 2 weeks in wrestling school.
Oh Jesus.
But he was one of their guys. He's one of Bert Cheeseburger's guys and Hunter's guys, so that's why he was doing it. So this is why I always tell people this now. Whenever I miss a moonsault, I always say, please roll in towards the turnbuckle, not away.
Yep.
He rolled away, and my leg came crashing down on him, and I ended up partially tearing my LCL, which is the ligament on the side of your leg. And it was pretty known that I was hurt. But I got up and I still finished the match. And Kevin pulled me up. He goes, hey man, so we need to see. Go get that leg checked out. Go home. We'll be in touch. And that's then the next time I heard from them is I had to take like 3 months off because it was pretty beat up. And by the time I was coming back, they did the Lockport taping, and that's where you and I were able to get in there and have a tag team. I thought it was really good, by the way. Like, it was a good match. Like, it was like, I think it was you and Mark House versus me, and
Rip Impact.
Rip Impact, yeah. Yes.
So for how I got there, so I did that first one, and I was the unknown, and I was like so excited, like, oh, look at me, they're doing the stuff. And for those of you who also don't know, at the end of these matches, you are put in front of Julius Caesar in the Coliseum, and the panel will kind of give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and one of them is the Booker Man. And and it pretty much is, yes, I would book you on TV tomorrow, or no, I would not.
Yep.
And so at the end of the weekend, got the thumbs down. He's just like, it's not that you're not good enough. He's like, I just don't know you. Keep showing your face, keep coming back, show up to the ring crew, let me know you more, and then I'll know like how I would book you. So I'm like, that sucks, but okay. So next camp, I came back. Now they know me, doing the same shit. And this is when Kevin Kelly started becoming a fan, or at least a supporter. And he'd always talk to me and do all this stuff. He liked my promos. He liked the stuff. And this is the one where he kind of pulled me aside, and he was just like, I've posted about this. He gave me the speech. He's just like, you don't have to convince us that you're an ass kicker. Like, we believe it. It's like, it's very obvious you're an ass kicker. That's when he's the first one who's like, you know what you are? You're a hired gun. You come into town, you fuck shit up, and then you leave and go on to the next town. He's like, you're just like Bruiser Brody. You're just like Stan Hansen. He's like, do that. He told me flat out, he goes, be Stan Hansen. And he's just like, Stan Hansen is from, Texas. So it makes sense for him to do the horns. He goes, you're not from Texas. You're from Central New York. So figure out what Central New York Stan Hansen would be. And he's like, maybe find your own thing. So that's when I stole this from the Messiah, who, would do it because of devil horns. But I do it because I'm so big that I need 2 hands for one bullhorn. So that's why I started doing that, because it's a so effing big bullhorn. So Central New York, yeah, we cowboy boots, cowboy hats, but farmers, truckers. My dad was a trucker. He arm wrestled, so now I just kind of let everything Central New York out. The flannels, the trucker hats. I switched to the cowboy hat. Now I'm more, country westerny for reasons, but so I started doing that. So I did a third one. And this third one is when the second night, the match I had, the last match, was against Slick Wagner Brown.
Oh, okay.
So he was there. How he didn't get anything out of it, I don't know. So we do the match, and that night there's a lot of new people there, and for some weird thing happened where they're just kind of getting really tired of people's fire comebacks and fire ups, that we did a fire up drill, sort of thing. So I was just like, we should incorporate that. Let them know that we're really paying attention. So basically what it is I'd be down on my knees, Slick's in my face yelling. Sorry, it was reversed. Slick's down on his knee. I'm in his face yelling at him. Slick's firing up. Give me shots. Boom, 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 boom. While he's firing up, he goes to give me the shot from down his knee. Slick, with all his Slick Wagner might, bear paws me right in the ear. Pop. I heard the pop. I heard the ring, and I felt a bunch of warm. So I take my wrist tape, because I tape my hands. I go like this, pull it out, blood on my wrist tape. I'm like, awesome. So we finished the match. Slick, being Slick, he wanted me to look good. We went over my match. I looked good. So Jay Briscoe, Christopher Daniels, there were the two there, along with a couple others, in the panel. So I remember they're going over the match, and I had to come over to the rope and turn my head. And Christopher Daniels is like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, we understand what happened. We appreciate you, this and this and sort of thing. And then Jay Briscoe takes out in the hallway. He's like, that match is great. I put on TV tomorrow. And he was the heavyweight champion at the time. He's like, I put on TV tomorrow. I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, I bled for him. I worked fucking slick. They all know me. This is great. This is awesome. Comes time for the Julius Caesar. Another fucking thumbs down. Same thing. I don't know how I would book you. You're really good. There's nothing I can tell you that you need to change. I just don't know how to book you. Yeah. So I was like, fuck. So what I did earlier for my promos is the promos I cut a promo that I was with Young and what was his name? Beer City Bruiser. And I was like, I told a story about how I was a third man and how we were like the Ring of Honor Freebirds. And they liked that. And he was there. He was like, oh, hey, welcome to the team. This is great. Hey. And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And he even told me, he was like, if they're down with that, it's like, I'm good for it. It's like, I'll do the fucking trio shit. And I'm like, fuck yeah. So I get the thumbs down. Don't know how to book you. I'm like, I told you how to book me, but it's fine, whatever. So I was down. I was down and out. I was like, I don't know what the fuck else to do. You tell me there's nothing I can improve, but you won't book me. So I didn't know what I was just defeated. I have to drive back 6.5, 7 hours with a busted eardrum and deflated spirits. And that's when Kevin Kelly came up to me. He goes, hey man, look, he's like, I know, he's saying this and that. He's like, just give me time. I'm going to work over him. He goes, it's not a question of, if you're going to be here, it's when. He goes, it might be 3 weeks, it might be 3 months. He goes, but I'm going to get you in. We're going to do this. And I was like, yes, finally, some shining light. And then they were coming to Lockport, whenever that was. It was not too long. It was like a month later or something. That's when I showed up, helped with ring crew, hoping for a spot. You were there, Krieger was there, and that's when he's like, hey, you got your gear bag? And I was like, yes, I do. He's like, all right, get your gear bag. And he pretty much, in so many words, is like, this is your tryout. This is your tryout match. We're gonna see how you guys do, and we're gonna go with it. And so we did the match. Like you said, it was great. It was very receptive. We got recognized by 2CW fans because we're in Buffalo. We got 2CW chants. We got people chanting our names. Everything was great. I really don't remember much of what happened in the match, but I remember feeling really good about it and Kevin Kelly really liking it. McCormick front row Lockport, not knowing you guys are going to be there was an awesome surprise. It was an awesome surprise for us.
Well, because we didn't find out we were working until probably an hour before they opened the doors.
Yep, because I thought it was all for naught. They're even on the whiteboard, like writing shit down.
Yeah, it was less than that. Like they were opening doors, and there was an hour till they were going to start the actual show, and that's when they were like, "Hey, you guys got your gear?"
Yep, I was all shaky. I called my wife, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, I'm getting a tryout." I go, "This is it." Like Kevin Kelly likes me, and I'm wrestling Carr. I was like, "The fucking stars are aligning, man. This is it. Like it's finally gonna happen. I'm finally gonna get signed. We're finally gonna go." And it was great, and everything was awesome, and I was riding a high. And then, like, I remember I came home, like, the next day, I'm telling Josh, I'm telling Loka, I'm telling all these guys, like, everything's great, everything's great. Kevin Kelly loves us. He's going to bring us in. He's talking about how he wants to bring up new people, build up new stars because they're losing so many people to WWE.
Yep.
You know, he told me specifically they just lost all of their heavyweights. They were talking
Yep.
about a super heavyweight division. I'm just like, this is it. And
Yep.
then a couple days later, maybe a week tops, I'm in bed because I work overnights. My phone is going off like crazy. I wake up. I look at my phone. Josh sends me a link. I click on the link. There it is. Kevin Kelly resigns from Ring of Honor Wrestling. And my heart sank.
Same. So for me, I actually went a little farther because they had me do the top prospect tournament.
I was expecting you to either make it to the finals or win it. Based on everything that we've heard, seen, everybody who was in it, I was like, Carr's winning this thing. I was like, Carr's gonna make it. Delirious, he likes the moonsaults. He doesn't know how to book big guys. So but I really thought you had it.
So I there's a lot that I think had happened during all that. There's some things that I was told. One of the things that the biggest detriment was the same thing with you as Kevin Kelly resigning. Kevin and Steve, because Kevin and Steve are really big pushers for you and me. Hunter had his eyes on other people. Originally, from what I was told, is that John Schuyler and I were supposed to go to the finals. That's what I was told. But instead, because they had signed Josh Woods, that is who they'd selected to win the tournament, which to me, I was like, man, I'm getting TV time. Like I'm being able to be able to just wrestle on their television product is awesome. But yeah, there was a lot that happened that I felt like Kevin was pushing his guys really hard. And you and I were two of those guys. And I think the vision and the idea of what he had going forward was not the same that Hunter had. And in the end, Hunter remained on the book and Kevin left. And it sucks. You know, I always tell people that, like, man, Brute and I were like, we were there. We were there because I'll never forget right after our match in Lockport, Kevin looked at both of us. He said, "You two come here." And he was like, "All I'm going to ask you two to do is don't be stupid.
Yes. Stay clean. Keep your noses clean.
Keep your noses clean. Stay healthy. And I'll be in touch." And after that, it was like the wind just left the sails But interesting enough, so like here's what happened to me during that whole week. Kevin was still on as a booker up until that week. He didn't resign just yet. He was leaving the company, but his official he just gave his notice. So he had sent out the email to all of us. Hey guys, we only have you booked for Pittsburgh. So if you want to take other indies, go right ahead. But we just need you in Pittsburgh, and then they'll explain everything from there. There was never any mention of any kind of accommodations like hotel. There was never any mention of, hey, we're going to need you in Columbus the next day. So what had happened is the prospect tournament happened in Pittsburgh, and I went by myself because there was no one else there, and I wasn't sure how I was going to like if it was like you just go there and wrestle and come back home, or nobody told me anything. And at the time, like I didn't really have money to put myself up in a hotel. So, and there was a really bad snowstorm coming through the Northeast. And I was like, man, I'm going to try to get out of like, I was like, hey, if you guys need me to stay around, I'm going to stay around. But at the time, like the show had happened, right? And a lot of the guys that were in the prospect tournament were leaving the venue. So I was like, wait a minute, we leave? Because like, there's like a nor'easter coming through. If I could try to get home. So I wasn't sure. So like, I made sure to like kind of like look. I believe they're in a commercial break, and Hunter had a headset on, but like the thing was up, so like he wasn't busy. And I was like, hey man, is it okay if we leave or not? And that's when he was like, I don't know, I guess. And I was like, well, man, shot myself in the foot right there. Good go, John. But I mean, there was no communication at all.
Yeah.
So I stayed around for the whole show. I ended up doing the ring crew and doing all that. And then the next day I made sure I emailed him. I was like, hey man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like, come at you at a bad time or anything. There was no direction. And if you're not taught, how are you supposed to know? If you're not told, how are you supposed to know? I found out later that they were going to use me in Columbus, but nobody told me. And I had a hotel that night that, again, nobody told me. And I speculated. Hunter, he always appreciated my pro wrestling skills, but I wasn't one of his guys.
Mm-hmm.
He was more geared and looking towards like the Monster Factory guys, like Gio, Shaheem, and all those guys. And hey, all those guys are super talented. They're awesome. But I felt like the same thing with you, that when Kevin left, that was the downfall. Her dreams of.
I mean, after he left, like I was hanging on by like strings. I bumped into Hunter at that last Lancaster show when they became like Keystone Wrestling or something. He was there you were there too. He was like scouting and stuff and watched my match. And again, after the match, I asked him like, any pointers I think I changed? He goes, no, everything you do is great. He goes, I really, really like your ring presence. He was like, you know who you are, and like it shows. He's like, I really like it. And I was like, awesome. When the fuck you gonna book me? But also I thanked them and everything. Yeah. And then stuff went by, nothing really happened. I got hit up by Cheeseburger, asked to do a Future of Honor. Went down there and did that. They put me against Shane Alden and stuff, and everyone's just like, oh, this is it. Shane does all that stuff. This is the test. If you have a good match with Shane, this is it. They're going to use you. Had a great match. Everyone liked it. And then that was it. I showed up to the next Buffalo show at Riverworks. Like Colt Cabana remembered me. A lot of people remember me and stuff, but nothing came from it, and like that was it, and my Ring of Honor days were done.
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks. I do know like a lot. I do know a lot of my downfall with that was also on me. I didn't go into that in the best shape that I could have been in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
They were really wanting like the washboard abs and the super slick tan and everything like that. And not to make excuses, but
no, they definitely had an aesthetic at the time. During that time, there's definitely that type. And like when they were talking to like the JT Duns and even the people at my camps that did get the thumbs up, they're all very similar in a lot of ways. And the only thing that really like bummed me out is after that camp of me pitching, me being the third guy with Young and Beer City, like a couple months later, Brian from New England gets added as their third guy. And they even had the same gimmick of the bouncers, because I said in my promo that I was bouncing at a bar they were at. They got into a fight, and I jumped in and joined them, and that's how like we started like teaming and stuff. So I was just like, this. I'm not saying they took my idea and gave it to somebody else, but holy shit, man, this does not help me feel any better.
Yeah. No, without a doubt, and and that's and that I mean everything in this thing is a learning lesson. I definitely think that like looking back on it, like I've always said, like I can always look back on my career with no regrets.
Yes.
I can always look back and be like, if it all ended tomorrow, I'd be like, man, I did a lot of cool stuff. I did a lot of stuff that I think 13-year-old Sean Carr, who was reading PWI magazine and like ordering Ring of Honor DVDs, would be like, wow, you did some cool stuff in the wrestling business. And I always take that, and it always sticks. And, that those are such cool times, all the times at 2CW, all the times that we've had kicking each other's ass all up and down the everywhere.
Yeah. 100%, man.
It was
always great. And I say the same thing a lot. I'm just like, I can hang my hat up tomorrow. And it's like, I did more than I ever thought. Once I learned what indie wrestling was, I was always like, how am I going to do anything? Like, how am I going to get to a great place? I go, I'm either going to have to like get really lucky, or I'm going to have to get even luckier and start in a great place. And I did. I started in a great place, and I started there and got to grow up there and learn. And that got me other places. I can say I did stuff with Ring of Honor. I can say I've had a tryout match and a pay-per-view match with Impact. And you're a part of both those stories, which is also crazy. But like, I've been to Japan, like I've done a lot of cool shit, and I could hang my hat up tomorrow and call it a night, but I'm not done yet. There's more shit I want to do, and I want to go out on my terms, and I don't want to go out because some promoters aren't getting back to me, or because one promoter likes me but the other one doesn't, and then the other one gives in his resignation. Like, I'm not done yet. And it's just kind of like that duality to it of, I've done a lot more. Maybe I won't be as lucky or won't have the opportunities to do that again, but there's more out there I want to do. And so I guess that's what's keeps us going, chasing that high, but also living up to our own standards. Because 13-year-old us would be like, dude, you guys did way more than I ever thought we would do. But at the same time, it's like, well, I got time. What else can we get in here? We got more. You know what I mean? And I feel like as long as you got that, you can keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. 100%. Couldn't agree more with you, brother.
I figured you and I are real similar like that. All right. So, Carr, how I like to try to end things here is, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some almost rapid fire questions about being on the road. You just
Okay.
let me know the answer, and then when we're done with that, we're gonna play a quick little game with the help of chat, and then that'll be it. So, on the road,
sounds good.
go-to road meal.
Man, it depends on what area you're in. If I'm coming back from Pennsylvania, I'm always stopping at Sheetz, and I am always getting a spicy chicken sandwich with a cup of fries.
Hell yeah. Deep fried Wisconsin cheese curds for this guy. All right.
All right, there you go.
On the road, go to music style. What do you listen to on the road?
So when I first started, it was obviously I'm a big hard rock type guy, new metal type guy. But lately I've been listening to podcasts. So like I'll listen to like something to wrestle or
That's the next one.
or-
That's the next one.
Ah!
Music first. Music first.
So music, it's definitely of the rock genre.
Okay.
I would say.
So then it's okay. Patrick did the same thing to me last week too. So go to podcast on the road.
Man, it's definitely tied between something to wrestle with Bruce Pritchard or I really like listening to Jim Cornette because I think he's very smart.
Dude, we need to travel because those are like two of my favorites, man. I fucking love those.
And I mean, like I get why a lot of people like don't like him, but like I feel like yeah, Corny has a lot of his views are from the 80s and Smoky Mountain Wrestling in the 90s, whatever, but like they still hold up to this day. And I feel that like a lot of the problems in wrestling right now probably wouldn't happen unless you had that very angry man from Kentucky.
100%. Just because you got to change with the business or evolve with it doesn't mean you have to lose everything that came before you. Like there's some stuff that's worth holding on to, and you need that guy to let you know.
Like even though it's so out there that it's a work and everything, like there's still aspects that you have to do to protect it.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. All right. Sheets over Wow always. Yes. 100%. Okay. Go to car karaoke song. We're driving along. It's late. We need to get the energy going. We're putting some music on. We're all gonna sing and bellow out our own lungs. What song are you putting on?
Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice. There you go.
Because no matter what, everybody in the car will know it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. So now here comes the fun part, the game. So chat, you know the drill. I need you to give me 3 wrestlers. Any wrestler from any time. First 3 wrestlers I see, we're gonna pick. It can be from any company, any era. Just 3 wrestlers. And then if it's something really specific, let me know. If it's like, European champion chest guard D'Lo Brown, if that's what you want. But any 3 wrestlers. All right. Dave McCormick says Nick Jackson. So there's 1.
Okay.
Carrie says Shawn Michaels. And the agent says Sting. He didn't specify which Sting. So we'll just go with, I guess, whichever one you want. Unless he comes in and gives us a very specific Crow or Surfer Sting or Joker Sting. I hope it's not Joker Sting. That'd be cruel.
Yeah,
all right.
That'd be bad.
So, Sean Carr, what we're going to do here is we're going to play one of our favorite road games when we're on the road to help us stay awake. This game was brought to us by Mr. Guy Sunshine himself, Mike Skyros. So this game is called Tag Feud Barry. So it's just like Marry Fuck Kill, except you're going to choose these 3 wrestlers, Nick Jackson, Shawn Michaels, and Sting. You're going to be a tag team with one, you're going to feud with one, and you're going to bury the fuck out of one. Now, you could base it off of, personal preference, drawing the most money, beneficial to career, but how are you going to do it?
So I would definitely tag with Sting because I feel like there's money there. I would want to feud with Sean because he is, without a doubt, probably one of, if not the best in-ring performers of all time. And I think Nick Jackson can bury himself pretty well, just being a young buck. It's nothing against him. I love Nick. Nick's super. Every time I met him, the last time I saw him at AEW. He was super cool. And he was like, "Yo, man, what's going on?" You know. So like that was what he remembered from the old two-step days. That would just have to be the order I would go in.
Okay, that's understandable. That's understandable. I feel the same way. I feel like I'm probably going to agree with you because I feel like working with Sean would, well, unless he thinks I'm Vader and buries me for being too stiff. So yeah, I'll still take my chances. Maybe I can he'll make me look good, and Sting anyway is going to be $1 million whether you're tagging or feuding. And I don't think there's anything I can do with just Nick Jackson. So that's good. Where's the hate for Joker's thing? Just, I don't know. Just saying it's not his greatest.
With me?
Oh no, because I was just saying,
I didn't.
Yeah, it's no one's favorite. All right, so there we have it. We made it to the end despite all the technical bullshit. We started on super indie time, but we got there. So Mr. Carr, thank you so much again for hanging in there, dealing with all the shit, getting it going, and being honored with me. I had a blast, and I still feel like we only really scratched the surface of shit we could talk about because it's been so much. But
absolutely,
honestly, dead serious, man, thank you for not only being on here, but thank you for all those fucking years, man. Seriously, who knows where we would be without those matches? I never was supposed to win those tag titles, but most of the time I did. It was because of you. We stole the show from fucking Mr. Monday Night. We went to Impact. We went to Ring of Honor. We've gone up and down 81. We've traded tag titles in multiple companies. I've never had a bad match. You've always brought out the best in me, and I fucking appreciate you so much, man. So thank you for everything. I really appreciate you,
dude. Thank you. And honestly, what we do, you've been an amazing dance partner throughout the whole years too. And who knows where I would be without all those matches that we've had. So the honor is truly mine. And I appreciate this time. It's cool to talk and just shoot the breeze of our past, and kind of let people in on maybe some stuff that maybe they didn't know. That they hopefully would find interesting. But Brute, man, this has been a pleasure and a blast of mine. I'm glad that we were able to do this, despite all the technological
goddamn technology
advantage. Twitter away. I will be deleting my Twitter in 10. The second we hang up, I'm deleting that Twitter. I swear to God.
Until I ask you to come back on again, and then you got to bring him back.
And I'm like, oh, damn it, I got to do it again.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. McCormick, thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. Everyone was sticking around with all the bullshit. I know that was annoying, especially all the echoing and stuff. I deeply thank you for joining us and being with us. And we're working the bugs out of the show. We'll get there eventually. But while you're here, we'll be back next Friday. 9 p.m. Eastern, super indie time. We'll see what it is. But next week, my guest, he's got big shoes to follow after this car, but I think he's up to the challenge because next week, my guest on the show is going to be the super cop himself. Dick Justice will be my guest, and boy, do we got stories to tell. So thank you, everybody, for commenting, hanging out, for the wrestlers in the game. It was great. Car, before we leave, got anything you want to plug? I know you got some shit coming up. Where are you gonna be? What are you gonna do? Where can I follow you?
I guess I'm on this wrestling card in Binghamton tomorrow, so
shocker.
Barely on that tomorrow. But no, I got Mortal Championship Wrestling. I'm gonna be wrestling your boy, the other hired gun, Garrett Holiday, for his Northeastern Championship belt. And then from there, like, it gets foggy. I had a crazy summer, so I'm gonna start taking a little bit time back for the holidays and kind of just, yeah, man, gotta reel it in. It was the summer was fun, but it's definitely probably excited for us. So that's about it.
Awesome, man. Well, Sean Carr, thank you so much again. You are great. Always a pleasure. I'll
Appreciate
see you in a couple weeks, and you have yourself a great night. Awesome.
You too, pal. I'll see you, all right?
I will see you, man. You take care. Everybody else, thank you. And until next time, just remember, you the champs. Bye.